Hi, everybody. This is your last learning in honors geometry this semester. So the very last thing we're going to learn about is the equation of a circle. So this is pretty important for Algebra 2 because we are going to assume that you guys understand this, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on reteaching this. We're just going to use this and go a little bit more in depth. So make sure you guys know how to do this for next year. Okay, so standard form of a circle looks like this. You have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals your radius squared. So that's the equation of a circle. Now, whenever you're talking about this, there's two important things that this equation gives you. It gives you the center. So if you look at this equation, your h and your k are the center. Now, the important thing is that you switch signs. So if this were like a -3, it would actually be at +3 as your center. And if this were a +4, it would be at -4. So the way we write this is we say that our center is at h comma k. So h comma k is the center. And notice that it switches signs. So if this were negative something, it becomes a positive. Negative something becomes positive. So this is important that you realize that it switches signs just for the center. Okay, and then the last one is r is the radius. So in order to get the actual radius, you would just come up here and you would take the square root of whatever number that is, and it would give you the radius of your circle. Okay, so let's do a couple. These are pretty easy. We're just going to go through and we're going to just write the equation given the center and the radius or the diameter. So the very first one, we have a center at 5, 3. Remember your signs switch. So the x always goes with whatever the x position is. So this is going to be x minus 5 because it was a +5. Don't forget the squared. That's what really makes it a circle. Then you put plus y minus 3. The y of your center goes with the y. The sign switches, and then squared. And then they give us our radius is 2. So this would be 2 squared, or you could write this as 4, would be completely fine. Okay? And that's your equation. All right, let's do another one. So this one starts with a negative x. So to switch the sign, this becomes x plus 1 squared plus y minus 7 squared, because it was a positive, equals the radius 14 squared. And then if you were to multiply that out, 14 squared is 196. You could write that in that way as well. It's totally fine. Okay, this one, they're both negative. So this becomes x plus 2 squared plus y plus 11 squared. So they both become positives because we're switching the sign. And then this was kind of mean. They gave us the diameter was 18. So if we cut that in half, we really get the radius is 9. So then this would be equal to 9 squared, which we all know is 81. So you can write it either way. You don't need to write both of these, just one or the other. Okay, and then, oh, this one's interesting. If you have 0, what do? So this one would really be like x plus 0 right here. So we can write it as just x squared because the plus 0 is not going to change anything. And then plus y minus 9 squared. Remember, we're switching signs, equals, okay, they gave us the diameter again, so we're going to cut that in half. 36 divided by 2 is 16, so this becomes 16 squared. If you plug that in your calculator, this just becomes 256, and I don't care how you write it. Okay, this one, center, this becomes x plus 4 squared, plus, now y is the one that is at 0, so we're just going to write this as y squared, because if we put plus 0 in there, it doesn't matter, equals, okay, now this one's kind of weird. They're saying that I took the square root of whatever this was and got this to be my radius. So what that means is that if I were to square my radius right here, this becomes just 47. That means my equation equals 47 right here. So to undo, this is really your r squared is 47. So when I take the square root, I get a radius of square root of 47. So that's how you would write this equation. Okay, let's do it one more time. X minus 15 squared because it was positive plus y plus 6 squared. And then remember, this is the radius. So to do the opposite, we square. So if I square and square root, this becomes 158 equals your radius squared. So then this is 158 is what my equation equals. Awesome. So now we're going to go, if we're given a graph, how do we write the equation of this thing? Okay, so there's a couple things we have to figure out. We first have to figure out the center. So it looks like we go right 3, down 2. So we have a center at +3, -2. And then the next thing we need to figure out is the radius. Remember, the radius goes all the way to the edge of the circle. So it's easiest if you draw it straight across or straight up and down and just count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So my radius is going to be 5. And now I just use that information to write the equation like we did above. So it's going to be x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals, and then the radius squared, which is 5 squared. And again, you can write this as 25 if you want to. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna switch it up and just do these next two. So this says, if I'm given the center and a point on the edge of the circle, how do I find the equation of that? Okay, so let's just write what we know. So we know at this point, this is gonna be x minus 9 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals the radius squared. Now the next thing that we have to do is we just have to figure out what the radius squared is so that we can actually write the equation for this. So what we do first is I can see that this is x and this is y, and those are points that have to be true for this equation. So I'm going to take those and plug them in for x and y over here. So this becomes 7 minus 9 squared plus 4 minus 10 squared is going to equal my radius squared. Okay, so 7 minus 9, this becomes negative 2 squared. This becomes negative 6 squared. So negative 2 squared becomes 4. Negative 6 squared becomes 36. So this is 40. So we get 40 equals r squared. And that is the number that goes up here and finishes our equation. So our final equation is going to be x minus 9 squared plus y minus 10 squared is equal to 40. And then you would be done. Now, if they asked you for the radius, remember you would take the square root of what your equation is equal to. So for this problem, your square root would be, or the radius would be the square root of 40. Okay, let's do it one more time with just some different signs. All right, so let's write the equation first. So you've got x minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared is equal to r squared. And then again, we're just going to plug in x and y. So negative 7 minus 1 squared plus negative 13 plus 5 squared is equal to r squared. So then this becomes negative 8 squared plus negative, what is that, 8 again? Yep, squared equals r squared. This becomes 64 plus 64, which is 128. And then you have your r squared, so then you know that's just what comes into the equation up here. So then my final equation is just going to be x minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 128. And then you're done. All right, we got a couple more I want to go through here, and then we're going to be done. So we're going to skip 10 and 11 because those are similar to what we just did. We are going to do 12 and 14 right here. So this one is, how do you write the equation of a circle if you're given the circumference or the area? So let's start with number 12. They give us the circumference is 6 pi, and they give us the center is negative 1, 4. So what we need is we only need the radius. We know the equation for circumference is 2 pi r. So we know that that has to equal 6 pi. Now, if I just want to solve for radius, I'm just going to divide both sides by 2 pi. The pi's cancel over here, so we get our radius is 3. Now we have all the information we need to write our equation of our circle. It becomes x plus 1 squared, switch the sign, plus y minus 4 squared equals your radius squared, which is 3 squared. And you can again also write that as 9. All right, same thing with 14, but they give us the area. So I need to find the radius. Area is pi r squared equals 16 pi. So first I would divide by pi. So I would get r squared equals 16. Then if you do the square root of that, you get r is equal to 4. So you have your radius is 4 and you have your center. So you're good to write your equation. So this becomes x plus 8 squared. Remember, we're switching the signs. Y plus 11 squared equals 4 squared, or 16. However you want to write it. Okay, 3 more. Going backwards. So if I have the equation already, we want to be able to identify the center, the radius, or the diameter. So in this one, they give us the equation right here, and we want to know the center. So we know we just look at these two places and we switch the signs. So since this is a minus 5, the x value of your center is going to be a positive 5, and since this is a negative 1, the y value of your center is going to be a positive 1. And then in order to get the radius, you do the square root of the last number, whatever it's equal to. The square root of 64 is equal to 8, so your radius is 8. Okay, same thing down here. All right, there's no number with x, so remember that tells us that it's a 0. So we have a x value of 0 at your center, and then this is a positive 10, so it switches signs to a negative 10. And then in order to get the radius, we do the square root of this. So square root of 42.25 is 6.5. And then this was a little tricky. They asked for the diameter. So you're just going to do 2 times 6.5, and you'll get that your diameter is 13. So that should be your answer. Okay, this last one is an awesome challenge problem that I would love to give you guys if we were in class for extra credit or something like that. but I'm just going to show you how to do it so everybody knows how. So it says, write the equation of a circle with diameter endpoints of 14 and 1 and 10 and 9. So basically what they've given us so far, if they've given us a circle, they've told us that there's a diameter that's going through the center of a circle, and then they gave us those 2 points, and we want to find the equation of the circle. So what I see is if I know that these 2 points are the edge of the points over here, then the center has to be perfectly in the middle of those 2 points, right? So what we can do to find the center is we can just do the midpoint formula and find the equation of it. So the midpoint is going to find the center of our circle. So let's see if we remember midpoint. Midpoint is you add the 2 x values. So I would do -14 plus -10, and then I cut them in half. And then the y values, I would do 1 plus the y value, which is 9, and then cut that in half. So if I do -14 minus 10, that becomes -24 divided by 2, which is -12. And then if I do 9 plus 1, that becomes 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So then the center of my circle is -12, 5. So this is step number 1. And then we go into what we were doing up above. So step number 2, now I'm just going to write the equation I have. So I know this is x plus 12 squared plus y minus 5 squared is equal to my radius squared. Now in order to find the radius, don't we just take a point and plug it in? So let's take, nope, let's do the other one. Let's take this point and plug it in, because I think it becomes a little bit nicer for me. So this is x and this is y. So I'm going to plug in -14 plus 12 squared, and then 1 minus 5 squared equals radius squared. Now it doesn't matter what point you use, I just picked one. So if I do -14 plus 12, this becomes -2 squared. And then 1 minus 5 becomes -4 squared equals radius squared. So this is 4 and 16, so we get 20 is our radius squared. And then we know we're done because that's what we needed to get our equation up here. So my final equation for the circle is x plus 12 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 20. And then you're done. So I hope that makes a little sense. This is a real important one for Algebra 2 Trig next year. And then you guys are just gonna go do your very last homework assignment and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. And I really hope you guys are getting outside and enjoying some beautiful weather today. All right, bye guys, miss you.